Today, we're continuing with my series, Happy Intentional Holidays. This series is all about the intentional steps we can take to have our holidays be a little happier. We're taking a look at how we can shift away from holiday stress and overwhelm and move toward holiday calm and enjoyment. Today, we're getting into the fifth part of this 6-part series. We're looking at advocating for boundaries with our time. So stick around to learn more. So hey there and welcome back. I'm Alicia from Alicia Cohen Designs, where I teach intentional planning and productivity tips and strategies for increasing peace and calm in our lives while also being able to focus on what matters most. If you're new to my channel, would you please do me a big favor and hit that subscribe button? It means a lot to me, helps support my channel, and as I always say, it's just really nice to know that I have supporters out there who are interested in what I have to share. So please give that subscribe button a tap, and now let's get to our topic. For part 5, we are going to focus on advocating for boundaries with our time. So a quick recap. So far in the series, we've talked a lot about during the holidays being good stewards of our time, being aware of how we're spending our time, being selective about our time, etc. And if you haven't seen it yet, check out the previous part of the series, part 4, where we took a look at protecting our time. I'll put a link to it over there in the cards. But now that we've discussed a bunch of topics about our mindset around time and our approach to time, it's a good next step to talk about boundaries so that we're making sure that our efforts in being intentional about our time during the holiday season don't get hijacked by some fuzzy boundaries or even lack of boundaries. So as I just mentioned, setting boundaries is highly related to our previous topic in part 4 of protecting our time. We discussed protecting our time when it comes to things like how much we're taking on, what new things we allow ourselves to take on, either in our calendars or our to-do list. But we really just discussed this in relation to things and events with people, where there aren't really any challenging emotions getting involved. So now, we're going to talk about protecting our time when it comes to situations in which challenging emotions can come into play. And this is where it gets tricky, or it can get tricky when it comes to protecting our time, because now we're predominantly talking about protecting our time with people. Because when it comes to protecting our time with things, with tasks, with to-do list items, like maybe you think, oh, I'd really like to try out that new recipe. Well, maybe you have time, maybe you don't. But if you don't try that new recipe, there's probably not going to be any consequences. No one is going to be upset or have their feelings hurt. But with some other things like choosing to participate in or not participate in particular traditions, or choosing to attend or not attend particular holiday get-togethers or parties, well, depending on how it goes, maybe there are some feelings that are going to get hurt. So what do I recommend here? Remember that in this series, we've talked a bunch about being aware of this idea that when we say yes to one thing, then by default, we are automatically saying no to something else. Whether that something else is an event, being able to get a project done, or maybe being able to rest, or maybe our sanity. But just that by saying yes to one thing, we are always saying no to another thing. So when it comes to protecting our time with people, especially where there might be challenging emotions, I still recommend running even these things with the people that we love and care about and know that there's a potential for hurt feelings. Still run these through a filter. Through the filter of when I say yes to one of these things, then I'm saying no to something else. And again, maybe that no to something else is another task or project or to-do list or social event or whatnot. But maybe the thing that you're saying no to is your sanity or your peace or your calm or your well-being or your enjoyment of the holidays. So this filter of what to say yes to, what to say no to is the first thing to think about here in terms of boundaries with our time during the holiday season when it comes to people. But then the next thing to think about is what's going to happen with that relationship. Hopefully the majority of the people in our lives are understanding when we need to decline. I mean, sure, maybe they're disappointed or bummed that we're not going to participate in whatever the thing is with them. But hopefully most of our friends understand, and maybe some of our family even understands. But many times we have family and they don't understand. We have family and they're pushy. And sometimes we have family and they don't appreciate being told no. And unfortunately, that's kind of part of setting boundaries sometimes, right? Okay, we'll continue with our topic in just a moment, but before we get back to it, if you haven't already, would you please hit that subscribe button? As I like to say, you subscribing is kind of like the gasoline for my channel. Keeps things running around here. So help keep this puppy running and subscribe. Okay, back we go to our topic. So many times boundaries are not comfortable. And so for today's topic, we're looking at setting a boundary or multiple boundaries to protect our time and maybe the person or people that we're setting those boundaries with, they're not gonna like it. And that's really hard. When it comes to communicating with people such that it's going to potentially turn into hurt feelings, there are a couple things to keep in mind here. First of all is just deciding, do you want to deal with this or not? Do you want to set this boundary or not? You could choose to not set it. You could choose to just kind of go along because you just kind of want to keep the peace and you don't want to rock the boat. And you know what? That is fine. That is a totally fine and valid choice to make. And what I recommend, if you find yourself in this situation, what I recommend that you do here is say, okay, well, I'm saying yes to this thing, this family event that is going to be draining and not really something that I want to say yes to, but I'm going to do it anyway. Well, then just kind of make up for that later in the things that you say yes or no to, right? If you feel like it's important that you say yes to a particular family function, then just take a careful look at where you can sort of make up for that later by saying no to other things so that you can still have that time to have your sanity or reclaim your sanity and enjoyment during the holidays. However, if you're going to go down the road of setting a boundary, I really recommend and like the work of Marshall Rosenberg, who came up with the nonviolent communication method, and he wrote a book called Nonviolent Communication. Just a smidge about him. In his career, he was a peace negotiator, essentially, and he would go into very high tension situations. And through the use of this nonviolent communication method that he came up with, he was able to get warring nations and warring tribes and, very tense situations, very intense situations. He was able to get these situations to be diffused and for these people to be able to come to some sort of agreement and peace and resolution. And so I just think that that's so interesting and fascinating that that was his career path. And I really appreciated being able to read his work in his book. So nonviolent communication, there's so much to be learned from his book, so definitely go check that out. I'll link it in the description below. But the long and short of it is that he recommends talking to people in the following way. When I hear you say X, I feel Y. I need you to Z. Would you be willing to do that? So what this might look like with boundaries with a family member who is particularly difficult would be the following. When I hear you ask me over and over again to come to the holiday get-together that I told you we wouldn't be able to make it to, I feel hurt or I feel frustrated. I need you to stop asking me if I can squeeze it in. Would you be willing to do that? Now, also a big part of the nonviolent communication method is getting really good at accepting the feelings of the other person. Doesn't mean liking the feelings. It doesn't mean condoning anything, but just accepting that that is how the other person is feeling and giving empathy. So something like, oh, you're really frustrated or you're really hurt that we are not going to attend the holiday get-together that you're hosting. I imagine that must be really disappointing and hard for you because you'd like to have us there. That makes sense. Knowing what I know about you or from your viewpoint, I can see how you would feel that way, and that makes sense. See how that works? Now, all of this protecting our time and setting boundaries can just be really hard. And the brief overview of nonviolent communication that I've given here is really not sufficient for dealing with really difficult and really trying family members. There is way more to the nonviolent communication method, like I said, that is covered in the book, that would be essential for learning about and incorporating to really make a difference. There's so much in there about how to listen, how to reflect communication back to someone, how to empathize, and just so much more in the book that's really quite essential, again, for being able to communicate in this way effectively and do it well. This all being said, with it being hard, a way that you can support yourself in this is to give yourself compassion. If you are really doing this, protecting your time in order to protect your sanity and your well-being and increase your enjoyment of the holidays and be able to focus on what matters most, there could be some hard stuff that you run up against. And even if you don't run up against hard stuff with relationships in your life, it can just be hard to make these choices over and over in order to be intentional about pursuing what matters most. So yeah, there's no beating around the bush about it. It can just be hard and unpleasant sometimes. But if you're looking for a way to really support yourself and be good to yourself, offering yourself compassion is a really good way to go. For a really great and valuable read, check out Self-Compassion by Kristin Neff. You'll read all about how to offer yourself compassion for supporting your own hard, difficult, challenging feelings. So, for example, we can use self-compassion when it's hard, and we can stop and say, oh, man, this is really hard. I'm really upset right now. Or, this doesn't seem fair. Or, I wish it wasn't this way. And just stopping and acknowledging our own experience, our own feelings in all of this, and all this holiday flurry of activities and boundary setting and protecting our time and needing to make choices and needing to make difficult choices and all of this, right? All of it. We can just stop and give ourselves some compassion for how hard it is and for how we feel. And again, I'm not going to get into this concept too deeply here today, just like I didn't get in too deeply about nonviolent communication. But check out Kristin Neff's book. It's linked in the description below, along with the Nonviolent Communication book. So again, this is just a tiny, tiny bit of information about nonviolent communication and self-compassion. So to learn more, pick up Marshall Rosenberg's book, Nonviolent Communication, and Kristin Neff's book, Self-Compassion. Nonviolent communication is a really great read for how to communicate with just people generally, whether it's a spouse, a partner, a family member, even kids and coworkers, and really just anyone. It's just, I can't speak highly enough about it. It's just a really great book. And so I'm just throwing it out there as an option, as a resource for you if you're going to choose to protect your time and it's going to maybe not go so well. And there are going to be some difficult feelings and difficult conversations to be had around the topic. Keep nonviolent communication in mind. And self-compassion is just a good way to take a look at being kind to yourself and helping yourself better navigate challenging feelings and situations. It's a way to take care of yourself regardless of what's going on around you. The links for both of these books and also both audiobooks, which are both on Audible, are listed in the description below, so please check those out if you are interested. Okay, now before we go, I want to make sure that you grab my freebie. If you check out the description below, along with everything else, there's a link for my Happy Intentional Holidays little mini workbook that I made. It's free. Go down there, click the link, sign up. It'll get sent to your email. It's just a few pages, like I said. It's a mini little workbook, and it'll take you through just a few questions and exercises to really help bring the intentionality to your holiday season, to pursue that happiness for your holiday season. So if you want to dive in a little bit deeper and you really want to go after this happy intentional holiday thing, again, please check the description below, click that link, and you'll be on your way to downloading my mini workbook. As always, thanks so much for spending this time with me. Be on the lookout for part 6 of this series coming at you soon. And my parting encouragement, as always, remember that when it comes to figuring out planning and productivity that creates the life that you want to have, being intentional plus not giving up means that you are going to get there. Catch you next time. Take good care.